Hello everyone. A very interesting video for today. In this one I'm going to be talking about 10 things I wish I knew in my 20s. If you don't know, I'm 35 now, and in 2 months I'm going to be 36. And yeah, I've just been doing some self-reflection, just been thinking back. And yeah, there's definitely things that I wish I knew in my 20s. Things that could definitely help a lot of you. Those of you who may be in your 20s right now. Or even those of you who are older. You may get something out of this as well. Because it may be something that you may recall, that you may also remember, and it could be something that you could share with your children so that they do know these things in their 20s, and then they can make improvements. It could improve their quality of life later on. So yeah, there are 10 things that I've got to share with you that I wish I knew in my 20s. And one is self-care. I wish I practiced more self-care. In my 20s, I wish I knew just how important that was. But to be fair, I did understand that to some degree. I did understand that self-care is very important. And I ate a lot of good food. I ate a lot of fish and vegetables. I was exercising several days a week. I was involved in all sorts of sports, martial arts, going to the gym, weightlifting, and I was really in excellent shape. From my early teens to throughout my 20s, I did take really good care of myself. And I also invested in expensive beauty products because I believe that that helps as well. Even in my early 20s, I was already using anti-aging skin products. And that's how at this age now, around 36 in 2 months, I believe that I still look quite youthful. I believe that I have taken pretty good care of myself. But still, it's still kind of something that I wish I knew more in my 20s. Because of course now, at all of the experience that I'm now more aware of how certain things affect my body. But that's definitely one thing that I would say I would advise for those of you who are in your 20s. Focus on self-care. And especially myself, when I was younger, I was definitely more of a codependent, a people pleaser. I was more worried about just taking care of everyone else. Just trying to be whatever everyone else wanted me to be. Rather than focusing on taking care of myself. So yeah, I wish I made that more of a priority. And I wish I had the knowledge that I have today regarding self-care. Because of course, it's very important. I mean, all we really have, all we really own in this life is our body, this vessel. And it's very important for us to take care of it, for us to practice self-care. So yeah, what I would advise for those of you who are still in your 20s is definitely to practice self-care. Eat the right foods. Get plenty of sleep, 8 hours a day if you can. Eat plenty of vegetables. I became a vegan about 5.5 years ago in 2019. So that's something as well that I wish I had known back then. If I was aware of the benefits of being a vegan, then I likely would have been a vegan a very long time ago. So that's something I also recommend for those of you who are in your 20s, is to research about the vegan diet, because I think that's also an excellent form of self-care, because there are a lot of negative effects of eating meat. It can obesity, heart disease, and so many other health problems. So being a vegan is definitely something that helped me from when I was 29. But if I was a vegan earlier in life, I'd probably be even healthier. I'd have a much stronger body, and I'd look a lot more youthful today. The second thing I wish I knew in my 20s is self-love. Now, this is a very important thing for me, because as I said, in my early 20s, I was a codependent, I was a people pleaser. I was more focused just on loving and taking care of everyone else but myself. And also I was constantly seeking validation from other people. I wanted to be good and look good for them. I wanted to be whatever they wanted me to be. I wanted to be the best person I could be for them. And of course that was great for them, but it wasn't great for me. And now what I realize is that I should have loved myself more. But unfortunately, with the way that I was raised, I was constantly put down and belittled. I was made to dislike myself, to dislike everything about myself. And I think that was a big part of the problem for me in my 20s. So what I really wish now is that I didn't take other people's criticism so seriously, and that I didn't chase after their approval. And instead, I just validated myself. I just loved myself. And I think that's a very important thing for us, is to practice self-love, is to love ourselves unconditionally. Because of course we have to take care of and love this being that we are, so that it can grow into something and be successful and thrive. Because that's just it. If you're not practicing self-care, if you're not practicing self-love, then you're gradually deteriorating. You're gradually dying. It's that care and that love that gives you life. And this is why, if you're in your early 20s right now, it's very important for you to practice self-love and self-care. And the tips that I advise is exploring the vegan diet, or even just abstaining from meat and becoming a vegetarian, maybe spending a bit more on beauty products, anti-aging, and self-love. Every day, look in the mirror and point out one thing that you love about yourself externally. And it could be anything. It could be the way that you style your hair. It could be your eyes. It could be your lips. Just something that you love about yourself, without requiring external validation from anyone. You just validate it for yourself. And then also focus on something you love about a certain quality or characteristic that you have. Maybe you're witty, humorous, intelligent. Focus on it. Remind yourself of that every day. It's a form of self-love. Read out positive affirmations every morning when you wake up and every night before you go to sleep, so that it rewires your brain. Because then you're giving love to yourself. You're giving love to your mind and body, which is helping you to grow. It's helping you to become healthy. So those are two things that I wish I knew in my 20s, self-care and self-love. And some tips for you to practice that. The third thing I wish I knew in my 20s is regarding social media. Now, social media can be a very powerful tool. And of course it is. You're all watching me on my channel, Narc Survivor, where I've managed to motivate and inspire millions of people around the world, help them to remove themselves from toxic relationships, narcissists. I've changed so many people's lives, prevented countless suicides, potentially, because these people are so toxic. So social media can be a very powerful tool, but it's very destructive. Even though you may go onto it with good intentions, you may think that you're sharing something positive with the world. You may think that you're uplifting people, motivating them. Maybe you're sharing your gains at the gym. You're posting pictures of how muscular you are. Or maybe about your job, your work. Maybe you got a new car. So you're posting these things on social media. It could be seeking validation. It could be that you are trying to uplift, motivate, and inspire people. Or maybe you're just trying to connect with people. It could be all of these things. But not everyone is going to see it the same way. And some people, they may get very envious and jealous. They may wish to be you. They may wish to have the body that you have. They may wish to drive the car that you drive. And so they then may just set out to discredit you, to smear you, to turn people against you. All of these things can happen. And this is why, despite how successful, handsome, or beautiful you may be, especially those of you in your early 20s, you may be in the prime of your life, in the prime of your attractiveness. And you may want to share that with the world because you think that other people are going to appreciate it. But actually, it may just make them hate you. And this happens all the time around the world. There's so many young teenage girls on social media who are getting bullied by their classmates in school or by people in their community. They're being harassed. And many of them have been pushed to suicide. Or at the very least, they end up depressed. And excluded from certain groups or social gatherings. And this is why I've included this as one of the things that I wish I knew in my 20s, because this is what happened to me. And even to this day, 13 years later, there's still a Twitter parody page about me. 13 years ago, I did contact the police who came to my house, and we tried to get it taken down. It's still online, but at this point, I just prefer to leave it there now for evidence. It's a reminder to me of what I went through and of what people's nature can be like. And it's very sad that it has to be this way. I mean, for me personally, I love it to see people's success, people's beauty. I think it's a wonderful thing, especially if people have worked hard for it and they take care of themselves, rather than deceiving or exploiting people. And to me, that's definitely something to celebrate. But not everyone thinks in that way, and we do need to be aware of this. That there are very envious, jealous people out there. There's also a lot of predators who may try to exploit you for your hard work and success, or for your beauty, when they are undeserving of you. So it's important to be aware of this. And this is why, personally, what I would say, those of you who are younger, I would advise to limit your time on social media or just stay off of it altogether. Or put your profile on private. Or just don't post too much about yourself, don't reveal too much about your life. And honestly, in some ways, I hate to say that. I hate to advise people to do that. Because I'm definitely someone who appreciates the beauty and the success of people. So I don't really want to tell people to not share that with the world. But then at the same time, we have to recognize of how sharing it can be harmful to you because of the types of people that are out there. And that's why I do advise limiting your time on social media, putting your profile on private, and maybe just staying off of it altogether, because it can get you into a lot of trouble. I mean, there's so many things that have happened in this world to innocent people who are well-meaning. There's so many things that have happened to them as a result of them being on social media that possibly never would have taken place if they didn't have social media, if people didn't know about them. And this is how destructive social media can be. It can be very dangerous. And also, there's so many fake profiles, there's so many scammers on there. There's so many things that can happen. And also, it could even affect you. I mean, just look at these TikTok trends. You start playing around with these TikTok trends, and then they start to go in a really much darker direction. And it changes you. It turns you into something that you're not. So it's important to have awareness about this, about the effects that social media can have on you, and also the effects that it has on other people. So that's what I would say regarding social media. And I also recommend for you to do your own research about the effects that social media has on humans. The fourth thing I wish I knew in my 20s is mental health. I wish I was more aware of my mental health, because I really didn't focus on mental health that much in my 20s. I wasn't really aware of it. It's like I wasn't fully self-aware. It's like I didn't even know what I was doing half the time, because I was being controlled so much. And at the same time, I was made to dislike myself. So I was just constantly searching for ways to make myself feel better. And as a result, I had difficulty regulating my own emotions. I didn't know how to self-regulate. Or perhaps it was because there were so many distractions and I didn't understand other people and how it was with the relationships that I had back then. To where, as a codependent, a people pleaser, I was dependent on other people to make me feel better. And it's like I didn't realize that I could just go within to do that for myself. Or that I could just focus on other activities. I could focus on self-love and self-care. It's like I wasn't really aware of this at the time. But I think what really would have helped me is if I had done more research on mental health and emotional regulation. And I guess what I'm saying is, I wish I had found a channel just like this when I was in my 20s, or even when I was a teenager, when I was much younger. If I had been aware of all of this information, things would have gone a lot better for me. And who knows, maybe the Narc Survivor channel would have started much earlier. Mental health is so important. And I think that this is something that many young people and children are unaware of, and they should be aware of it. They should be learning from a very young age about how to take care of their mental health. Unfortunately, it only tends to be more in extremes. It's usually children who have mental health problems in childhood. They're the ones who get the support. And they're the ones who really end up taking better care of their mental health later on, because they're more aware of it then. While everyone else, they just go on thinking that they don't have a problem. But actually, most people in this world do have quite serious mental health problems because they've neglected their mental health throughout their lives. Most people have difficulty regulating their emotions, and yet they blame someone else for that, as though it's someone else's problem and as though they're meant to attend to it. So yeah, definitely something I wish I knew more about in my 20s. Mental health. Now the fifth thing I wish I knew in my 20s. It's regarding fear and social anxiety. So many missed opportunities where I could have made a new friend, or I could have had a relationship with someone. I could have built a connection. I could have had something that could have benefited me. But I didn't, out of fear, out of social anxiety. I avoided them, I pushed them away because I thought they wouldn't like me. Or in some situations, because I didn't have the social skills back then. Because I was really sheltered throughout my childhood, I didn't really know how to talk to people. And I'm sure many of you can relate to this. It's a very common thing among people who have social anxiety, among people who didn't get to develop the social skills earlier on. It's almost like I would be afraid of saying the wrong thing, or of coming across as rude or disrespectful. And then it's like my brain would just concoct, what is the worst possible thing that I could say to this person to really make them just despise me, or to make them run away from me? And then I would just blurt it out. I would just say that. And it's crazy, but this is just how it is. This is just how our minds work when we have social anxiety. It's like we're trying to avoid coming across as rude or disrespectful. But then it's like what we resist persists because we're fighting it, we're pushing back against it. It just perpetuates it, it then makes it a reality. So we're trying our best to hold on to someone and to connect with them, to not push them away. And then that's exactly what we end up doing. Out of fear, out of anxiety. And yeah, that's what I did a lot of times. So in some situations, I felt very insecure. So then I just kind of overcompensated for all that. I decided as though I was too sure of everything, and so I didn't really need anyone. When really that wasn't the truth. And I ended up getting into relationships with narcissistic people throughout my 20s, people who didn't really care about me or value me. They didn't see the good in me. And yeah, I really feel like that was missing for me back then. That I could have had more mutually loving relationships with people who loved me just as much as I loved them. So that's definitely something to work on. Those of you who are in your 20s, definitely work on overcoming your fear. Work on your social anxiety. Focus on building your confidence. And a way that you can do that is just try to talk to someone every day. Wherever you are, wherever you go. Maybe you're going to a store, or you're going to the gym. Just approach someone there and talk to them. Just talk about something based on observation. And it could be anything. It could be something that they're wearing. If it's something that you notice, if it's something that stands out to you, or maybe they're wearing a pair of Nike trainers and you also like Nike, you could comment on that. So just start a random conversation. Yes, you may feel anxious at first, but by doing this, by going into what you're afraid of, it will then help you to overcome it. And you will gradually become more confident. And this is really like a cheat code for life. Because so many people are missing out on opportunities in their 20s where they could be developing friendships, relationships, even business connections with people who could really benefit them. And having that relationship could change your future, your life, just by having the right type of people around you. And it doesn't mean that you've got to go up to your crush or someone who you think could be good for you straight away. Start small, just talk to anyone. Talk to someone you're not really attracted to, someone who can't even do anything for you. Maybe someone who's a bit more overweight, just whatever makes you feel more comfortable. Start small and then gradually work your way up. It will improve your confidence. And you may think that it's almost like a social taboo, as though you can't just randomly go out and just talk to anyone, but you can. You can talk to anyone anywhere you want. You can start a conversation out of nothing. And honestly, it's like magic. It's like magic because there's situations where you may have seen someone that you liked, someone that you were attracted to, someone that you really wanted to get to know, someone that you really wanted to be with, or someone who you thought you could have worked with in something, you could have collaborated. And by you developing your confidence, overcoming your social anxiety, you can then make that a reality. You can then experience that when normally it might never have happened. And this is the power of overcoming your fears, of overcoming your social anxiety. You get to meet people that normally you would never have met, which could change your timeline. It could put you on a new direction, a new path. You can make new connections. You can have more fulfilling relationships. And yeah, it all starts by overcoming your fears, overcoming your social anxiety. I guess what it is really, it's a fear of how people are perceiving you. It's a fear of being judged. And that then prevents you from taking opportunities, taking things that could be good for you. Just because you have that fear of being judged. Maybe you're feeling a little bit insecure or you're worried if they don't like you. And this is how everything can change just by you having confidence in yourself. Just by you overcoming that fear, not being shy. Because that's just it. You never know where someone else's mind is. You don't know what they're thinking about you. I mean, maybe they liked you. Maybe they thought you were cool. But maybe they were also anxious. Maybe they were intimidated by you. Or maybe they had something else on their mind at the time. Maybe they were worried about something that they had to do later on that day. Maybe they were stressed about something that happened earlier. So their mind may have been somewhere else. But just by you having the courage to spark up that conversation, it could have changed everything for you and for them. It could have made their day a lot better. Then that's just it. You don't even have to begin by talking to people. Even just by making eye contact. Even just by smiling at someone. That can make someone's day. It can make them feel seen, appreciated, loved. That's the power that you have just in your eye contact, just in your smile. And that helps as well, just not making it so much about yourself and how it's going to benefit you or how it's going to make you feel better. Overcoming your fear, your social anxiety, but also focus on the value that you have to offer. By realizing that just your eye contact, just your smile, your conversation can make someone's day, can make them feel better. Because honestly, even these girls who they're on social media and they've got thousands of followers, thousands of likes on their pictures, none of that means anything compared to someone who actually approaches them in real life. One person means more than all of that put together. Because most men, they don't have the confidence to approach a woman in real life. Or even if they do, they might come off as weird or creepy. And this is why it's important to overcome your fear and your social anxiety so that you don't come off that way. But that's just it, because even if you take good care of yourself, you work on things, and you're attractive, you're likely not to come off that way anyway. Even if you do seem shy, they may just think that you're cute. So as long as you're taking good care of yourself, you can't really go wrong. The sixth thing I wish I knew in my 20s is about addictions and healthy coping strategies. Because when I was younger, I was drinking alcohol sometimes several days a week. I was smoking weed, doing drugs, also eating a lot of junk food. I was eating McDonald's, Pizza Hut several days a week. Of course, all of this was very unhealthy. And also I was eating a lot of red meats, which I thought it was going to be good for muscle building. But yes, it can be. It does have a lot of protein. But also, as I spoke about earlier, meats can lead to heart disease and even obesity. So I was engaged in a lot of unhealthy things, addictions. And at the time, it was kind of just a bit of fun. It was a distraction. It made me feel better in the moment. It gave me excitement, euphoria. And really, it is unhealthy. It's not good. It's better to develop healthier coping strategies. And what I would say is a healthy coping strategy is to do research about mental health and about emotional regulation. Practice self-love and self-care. Meditate. Eat healthier foods, plenty of vegetables. Exercise, get plenty of sleep. Practice positive affirmations. All of these things together constitute a much healthier coping strategy, which will produce healthier long-term benefits, rather than relying on alcohol or drugs as instant gratification, or in order to numb yourself or to escape. So again, another thing I wish I knew in my 20s. I mean, at some level, I did know that these addictions are not good, but I wasn't fully aware of it. It didn't really sink in. And I thought, this is just what everyone else does. I mean, they all drink, they all smoke weed at that time. But just because everyone else is doing it, that doesn't mean that it's good. So again, I definitely advise against drinking excessive amounts of alcohol and using drugs. Another thing I wish I knew in my 20s is about narcissists and setting boundaries. I mean, I had my life open to so many people, so many narcissistic people who were just using and exploiting me. People who never should have been in my life. People who were cheating me, robbing me. Because I didn't really understand about narcissists at the time. And they would blame me and judge me, and I thought it was just me. I thought it was something that I had to change about myself in order to be better for them. At the time, I didn't even know what a narcissist was. I didn't know anything about boundaries. And back then, I was more of a codependent, a people pleaser. I was just serving everyone else's emotional needs. I was just being whatever they wanted me to be. But if you're in your 20s and you're watching this, I mean, you're definitely ahead of most people today. If you're learning about this, you're aware of narcissists. You're aware that you need to have boundaries. This is very important because it helps you to protect and preserve yourself. So again, narcissism boundaries are another thing that I wish I knew in my 20s. The eighth thing I wish I knew in my 20s is that reputation doesn't matter. Because back then I was so worried about what everyone else thought about me. I felt like it was so important to be seen as something desirable, successful, attractive to other people. And it's kind of like, in some weird way, it's like I was putting other people on a pedestal, idealizing them, as though what they thought of me really held weight and was credible, like it really mattered. What most people think is important, because you're asked to live your life. And what are they doing for you? Are they taking care of you? Are they paying your bills? So what does it matter what they think? Are they helping you? Are they benefiting you in any way? So why does it matter what they think? Now, of course, that doesn't mean that you can just act like a fool and just get drunk all the time and just do whatever you want. Of course, that can affect you negatively as well. But as I mentioned with the boundaries, instead of worrying about what all of these people think, you just need to set boundaries and keep these people of your life. Instead of you trying to get them to see you in a certain way and trying to get them to care about you and value you, none of that matters. It's not even important. You don't need them to see you in a certain way. And what you may not know is that most of those people are more worried about what you think of them. That's what they're more focused on. They want to be seen by you in a certain way. And they really can't do anything for you. So really your reputation is not that important. It's around a small group of people, having a small social circle. Now that's what's going to benefit you. And yes, your reputation matters around those people, around people who are supporting you, people who are going to be there for you. Of course, you don't want to ruin your reputation with those types of people. Such as with me, I mean, I don't really care about what most people in the world think of me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't concern me. Like, as an example, I'm staying here in the city, Mandaluyong, in the Philippines. I mean, you see this guy walking down here? What does it matter what he thinks about me? Does it matter if he knows that I'm a successful YouTuber or that he thinks that I'm handsome? What difference does it make? How is that going to impact me in any way? It's not going to affect me in a positive way. I mean, what, it might give you a little ego boost, a little bit of validation. It might make you feel a little bit better about yourself. But then afterwards, you're going to feel worse. It's just a social validation loop. It's much better if you practice self-love and self-care. But for me, it's not a concern to me. It doesn't matter what any of these people think. If you're always worried about what other people think, you're always going to be losing. You're always going to be at the whim of everyone else. You're always going to be dependent on them, which means that they're always going to have the power over you. And yeah, you may see these people on social media, Instagram models, successful millionaires, and they may seem really powerful and successful. Actually, they're just completely powerless because they're at the whim of everyone else. They're dependent on everyone else, and that's how they often become very resentful of their own fans and followers, because they need them. They can't live without them. They need that attention and validation from so many different people, and often people who aren't even doing anything for them. Whereas for me, I prefer to keep my circle small rather than having too many people, where we have more of a personal connection. Mutual interests and understandings. And that's why for me, it doesn't matter what most people think. I don't need to have a reputation with the entire world. My reputation and what matters to me is more to do with this community. It's more important what people on this channel think about me, because this is what matters to me. This is what I'm interested in. I'm interested in relationships, psychology, narcissism. And this is why I conduct my life and my personality around this channel. because this is what matters to me. And I care more about what you think and what's good for you. How I can make this experience better for you. Support to everyone else in the world, it just doesn't matter to me. It's not important. And this is why I say, in the grand scheme of things, your reputation, it doesn't really matter. Instead of focusing on trying to have an amazing reputation among as many people as you possibly can, which is just going to say failure, what I advise for those of you in your 20s, don't focus on reputation among a large number of people, and instead focus on not having a reputation. Focus on keeping yourself. If they're aware that you're hardworking and successful, it may just make them hate you. You're hardworking and successful, it may just make them hate you. Envy you. This is why it's best to keep your circle small. Don't let too many people be aware of you. Focus on not having a reputation. Whether it's a good reputation or bad, doesn't matter. Just any reputation at all, just focus on not having one. It's like the less that people know about you, the better and the safer that you will be. Whether you're doing good things or bad things. And in the world today, I mean, most people, they get a reputation for doing bad things and they're glorified for that. That's just how it is. The ninth thing that I wish I knew in my 20s is about finding my purpose. I believe that this is my purpose. Relationships, building connections, and focusing on mental health disorders. Now, I didn't know that back then. I didn't know that in my 20s. I mean, not until I was 29. But if I had known that back then, I could have begun this a long time ago. And I wouldn't say that I have regrets about that, but I could have been doing this in my early 20s. I could have been talking about this already if I was aware of this information. So yeah, maybe that would have given me an advantage if I did find my purpose a lot earlier on. But really, it does appear as though most people in the world, they don't find their purpose until later in life. Not until their 30s or even much later on. Often not even until their 40s or 50s in some situations. I mean, the celebrities, there's successful entrepreneurs in this world who didn't find their purpose until they were elderly, they were 60s or 70s. So this can happen much later on in life. But in some ways, when I look back, I do think that maybe I could have found my purpose much earlier on. And if I did, of course, that would have improved a lot of things for me as well. It would have made me realize that I just need to avoid as many people as I can. I need to have very strong, rigid boundaries. I need to be much colder, much more distant, rather than being so warm and open. And honestly, that would have helped me to avoid most of the problems in my life. If I was just more of an a-hole, if I was just more colder and more distant to people, it would have saved me a lot of trouble. It's because I was so warm, so loving. That's what got me into trouble in my life. That's where I ended up in so many relationships with narcissists. It's how I ended up around the wrong people. But that then leads me to the 10th thing I wish I knew in my 20s, which is about building authentic connections. Because I really didn't have too much of that in my 20s. I didn't have too many strong, authentic friendships or relationships. I think that was missing for me. I mean, I did have a few, but I could have had more. And even the ones that I did have could have been deeper and better. And this is a common thing among the youth today, is that most people in their 20s, they don't have any authentic connections. It's just all about the superficial. It's just all about their own self-interest and not about the other person. Most people in their 20s are just using each other. Or they're just using it, again, for their image, their reputation. Because they think it makes them look good in front of other people. It's just for social validation. And that really is a problem among most young people today, is that they're all just seeking social validation rather than building authentic connections. And I think social media is a big part of the problem. And this is why, again, I say, try to avoid social media if you can, and maybe take up a hobby and go to libraries, go to, maybe if you're in college, museums, art galleries, these types of places. You're going to find people who are more introverted, people who aren't so focused on having a reputation or on social validation. And there you're going to have more deeper, meaningful connections. You're going to have relationships that actually serve you in life, and that actually serve you in the long term, things that are actually sustainable, realistic, practical. And that's going to change everything for you. Just focusing on building authentic connections, but also not relying on people for that social validation, and practicing self-love and self-care. Because those are the best relationships, is when you're not heavily dependent on someone else for validation. I mean, of course, we are human, we are social creatures, and whether we like it or not, we do need to feel validated by other people. And that's just how it is, and there's nothing we can do about that. I mean, actually, the CIA conducted experiments and tortured prisoners of war. I think this was in Vietnam. And what they did was they put them in solitary confinement. They cut them off from other people. And gradually, these people just went insane. They ended up losing their minds without any external stimuli. They just gradually lost their minds. So validation from other people is important. We all need to be seen, we all need to be recognized. And when people are not, that's how they end up becoming mentally ill. That's how they end up losing their minds. That's how they end up becoming very unhealthy. But also, it should from within. So we should still practice self-love and self-care as well. And those are the best relationships, are when there's two people who are both confident within themselves. They both love themselves and take care of themselves. So then, of course, if you love yourself and you take care of yourself, you can then love and take care of another person. If you validate yourself, you can validate someone else. So those are going to be the most beautiful connections. And also what can help is having a pet. I didn't have Nala until I was, I think I was 27. This was in 2017. So it's been about 7 years now. But yeah, since I had Nala now, it just makes me think, how didn't I have a pet before that? Because having Nala, it really just changed everything for me. It gave me that emotional support that I never had. And I don't think it's a coincidence that from having Nala, well, then less than 1 year later, I then began this YouTube channel, and it changed everything for me. So yeah, don't underestimate the emotional support that a pet can provide. I really love pets. I think they're amazing. Cats and even dogs as well. I prefer small dogs rather than the bigger ones to be in the home. But again, never underestimate the love that a pet can bring to you. It's unconditional love. And yeah, it's another thing that I wish I knew in my 20s is just how important authentic connections, focusing on the superficial and building up a certain reputation of, just always having the coolest friends or the most beautiful women. I mean, yeah, that could be good as well. It's just focusing too heavily on that and not so much on actually building authentic connections. Because the truth is, there's a lot of people in this world who can't have authentic connections. And you're really just wasting your time on those people because they're emotionally unavailable. And the longer you spend around them, it's just going to drain you. And because you're trying to connect to them, you're trying to connect your authentic self to them, and they can't connect back to you. It then just ends up disconnecting you from yourself, and you become even less self-aware. So it can be very dangerous to be involved with emotionally unavailable people. But sadly, this is how it is for most people these days. Most people these days, from a very young age, they are involved with emotionally unavailable people. And a lot of them, they think that they're with someone who's emotionally unavailable, and they don't see that emotional unavailability in themselves. That's the funny thing about it. And call it for what it is. I mean, there's a lot of young women out there today who they think that they're with an emotionally unavailable man who can't connect to them. But then they can't see the hypocrisy of how actually, even if that man was emotionally available, they couldn't connect to him as well. Because many of these young women are narcissistic and they're operating with a false self. They're just more focused on their physical appearance and their bodies, so that there's nothing for the man to connect to anyway. So I think there is a problem on both sides among young people today. And the irony is that even though everything is so hypersexualized in every part of the world today, east to west, young people are having less sex than they ever did before. And that's a fact. And statistics show that one in 10 people at the age of 26 are still virgins. And then, of course, there's the amount of single mothers. The divorce rate is higher than it's ever been. And also the amount of unmarried women over 30 is higher than it's ever been. And this isn't just in the Western world. In the Eastern world, especially in Asian countries like Japan, China, Korea, there's so many older unmarried women who have never had children. And it's because their entire lives are just focused on their physical appearance. They want to become this this perfect real life doll. And they're just empty inside. They have nothing to give, and yet they blame the men for being emotionally unavailable, while at the same time they're like brainwashing them into only focusing on the external. And then they wonder why they can't find someone to love them. So it's a problem on both sides. A lot of these women, they think that they're so loving, they're so kind, and that is the man who is emotionally unavailable. But just look at the type of guy that they pick. Does that sound like something that an emotionally available woman would do? Probably not. But yeah, these are the 10 things that I wish I knew in my 20s. 10 things that I wish I knew. Self-care. Self-love. The dangers of social media. The importance of mental health and emotional regulation. Overcoming fear and social anxiety. The harmful effects of addictions and unhealthy coping strategies. The importance of boundaries and being aware of narcissists. Understanding that reputation doesn't matter, and instead, among most people at least, not having a reputation is more important. And just having a reputation among a smaller group of people. And also finding my purpose earlier in life. And building authentic connections and possibly having a pet. So yeah, those are the 10 things that I wish I knew in my 20s. Now let's see what people are saying in the live chat. Anything that you have to add? Is there anything that you wish you knew in your 20s? I see there's no mod in the live chat, so we do have a lot of trolls. Let's just try to ignore the trolls. I will hide them as I see them. Just remember, they just want attention, and they will do or say anything they can to get it. Whatever they think is going to provoke a reaction, because they're just seeking narcissistic supply to feel powerful. Yeah, let me know anything that you wish you knew in your 20s. Monica Z says, I wish I knew it was enough. Definitely, that's a very important thing to know when you are young. Because this world is always trying to teach you that you're not enough. Well, what if you are? And this is why I mentioned that I wish I knew more about self-care and self-love when I was younger. Kay says, I wish I knew how fake this is in my 20s. That's a good one, that's one I should have mentioned as well. It's like, this world and took everything and everyone so seriously. But everything is really just so fake. It's just fake friendships, fake relationships, just fake people. And it's all just superficial. But yeah, it's building authentic connections. I have Anya asks, what one advice would you give to a 25-year-old woman who hasn't started a career? Well, that's just it. I wouldn't worry too much about that at such a young age. I mean, instead focus on preparing yourself for later in life because, as I said, there's plenty of people in this world who didn't find their purpose until much later in life, until they're in their 40s or 50s or even older. And even me, I didn't find my purpose until I was 29. And I may have an even greater purpose later in life, I don't know. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. And just take small steps to finding your purpose. Do research and just try out different things. See what works for you. I know there's a lot of immature comments in the live chat. Another tactic they use is they try and make it like a joke, like a something funny. That's because they might try and make it insulting, something offensive, but then also they try and make it funny just in case it doesn't manage to have that type of effect on you. But yeah, just trying to ignore these immature comments. Dawn Casasa Lee says, wish I realised my boyfriend just teasing all the time would later turn into him being a disrespectful husband. And also know about boundaries, how serious it is. I've been way too nice all my life. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I agree, that's something I wish I knew. It's how small things can later escalate into something much bigger. So yeah, even what seems like playful teasing at the beginning of a relationship, sometimes it can lead to full-on bullying later on. That can definitely happen. And yeah, that's why it's important to be aware of what is playful teasing. Is it something where they're laughing with you? Are you included in it? Or are they just mocking you? Because if it's that type of teasing, then typically, yes, it will escalate over time. It will get worse. Tiffany Davis says, I wish I knew back then that I didn't deserve their abuse. Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that could have benefited all of us if we didn't. If we did know that we weren't deserving of that type of treatment. Because, of course, nobody deserves to be abused. But at that time, yes, we were unaware. We thought this is what we deserve, that we deserve to be treated that type of way. We didn't have the awareness back then. And that's what they play on. They play on what you think you deserve, and they teach you to think that you deserve something that actually you don't deserve to be treated that way. But yeah, I hope you found this video helpful. 10 things I wish I knew in my 20s. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Hit the subscribe button and click all notifications so that you will be notified when I go live again. At this time, there aren't any ads on the channel, so I'm not earning any revenue from these videos. But you are welcome to donate, and I appreciate all donations, no matter how small. Just go to my PayPal to donate. It's paypal.me/Narc Survivor. If you'd like to book a one-on-one coaching session with me, just go to my website. It's narcsurvivor.co.uk. And also follow me on Instagram. It's Narc Survivor YouTube. Every day I am uploading content for my trip this year, being in the